What's up, everybody? Shauna D Man here, and welcome back to the channel for a little bit of a bonus video for this week, alongside some of the other things that are going on this week. I'm back with Jamie, and
Hi.
so listen, and we're going to talk about season one of The Last of Us. I'm looking forward to this because originally I wasn't, and I told Jamie this. I was like, I wasn't planning on doing a review of this series, but after watching, like, I think it was like the first episode, I told you, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna do a review of the series of the show of season one, and and Jamie just kind of like forcefully added herself into doing this as well. So
I mean, yeah, no, it probably was a pretty poor
so, but I'm not judging. I'm all for it. So season one of The Last of Us just ended this past Sunday. You should be watching this on a Thursday. I mess with my camera. Um, so here's this may be a long video, but I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna go first. We kind of talked about this before we recorded. I'm gonna go first and give my thoughts about it because I've never played the games and I knew nothing about it. Whereas Jamie has a little bit more perspective on on the things as well. So
just a little. Just a
just
little
a little.
bit.
She thought she was gonna have time to rewatch all of it, and I was like, I know you're not gonna do it, but that's okay. And so I need people to understand that this is this is like the second time me and Jamie have done this. She was on an episode of Nerd Talk, if everybody caught that episode. But the funniest thing about it, ever since that episode, we would talk almost like every day now. And people, I need you to understand, if you're watching, never in my life have I met somebody who I hit it off with really well, but we just primarily like just shit talk each other a lot of the times. And
It's
so
just natural.
it is. And so it's very, it's good conversations. Um, but jumping into season one. So for me, when the show was first announced, I've heard of the games and things like that, but I never really paid any attention to them. Uh, Overall, I'm gonna say overall perspective of the show. I liked it. There are some things that maybe should have been done differently or could have been better. There's just some characters and some story parts that I was kind of like, I don't think I really felt a connection here, or maybe they should have just gone a different direction. But anything with Pedro is chef's kiss because
Oh, especially now. Yeah.
yes, he is all over the place because this was also going on too while season three of The Mandalorian was starting to kick up and get going, and then I feel like he was in something else too, but I love him as an actor. He's one of my favorites. Bella Ramsey, um, she was fine. I've seen people, and I'll let you jump on this. Well, but like I've seen people not like her playing Ellie. I don't know where you stand on that. I'm fine with it. I saw her in Game of Thrones. It's when I first
hmm
saw her, and I've always thought she was a really good actress. I didn't care as much. I thought the casting was pretty cool. Um, plot wise, it was good. There were some parts. Again, I was just kind of like, I think you could have maybe done things differently, and or it's just I didn't, like I said, didn't feel a connection in certain areas. Um, I don't mind, and I've seen people talk about this, and they talk about how there's not a whole lot of infected,
Hmm.
but that doesn't bother me because this isn't The Walking Dead, and I think that's what people are trying too hard to match it up with. But uh, I love the whole father daughter relationship building that was going on through this first season, and watching Joel reopen his heart after being closed for so many years after what happened with his daughter. It was a good journey. It was a solid good journey. Um, I know the ending is maybe different from the game, so tell me what you thought. Tell me what your thoughts on season one.
Yeah, so to just preface, I am a huge Last of Us fan. Obviously, you know that, but for
Yes.
everyone else, I played this game back in 2013 when it released, and it's been stuck with me ever since. I'm like an avid Last of Us collector. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Even before the series on HBO, they were talking about making a movie, and back then I was on board. I'm glad we got the HBO series. But yeah, so I'm coming into this as a very long time, very passionate fan. Um, I I loved it. I don't think I have many bad things, not and even the things I have aren't necessarily bad, but I definitely think there are definitely moments that could have been expanded upon. A few things they took out, a few things that are very different. But overall, I really enjoy the series as a companion, as its own thing. Um, you touched on Bella Ramsey. I think everyone honestly did a great job. And even before the show came out, there was a lot of discourse about Bella's casting. And I've got a lot of opinions about
Mm,
people who had opinions. But I had no doubt that Bella would be amazing. After Game of Thrones, where she also plays like a very young, strong child,
right.
I feel like it's a little hard to think that she wouldn't be good in the role. Obviously, people are very protective over certain things,
Yeah.
but I thought she did amazing. I thought, oh my gosh, she blew me away. I thought she was going to be good, and she turned out to be great. So I loved her. I loved Pedro. I loved everybody else. I think the creators of the show and the game and everyone who went into making this, you can feel the love behind it.
Right.
And for an adaptation, especially for a video game adaptation, which we haven't had much luck on, I think they blew it out of the park.
Yeah. So yeah, it is one of the better video game adaptations that's come out recently. Like I would even go and say it's on par with Sonic the Hedgehog. That
Mm,
one has been a pretty good video game adaptation. Detective Pikachu, depending on how you view that movie, is is based off a video game and it's pretty.
right.
It does a very good job in its own little universe. But yeah, video game adaptations have not been very good whatsoever the past.
Oh
Because
God.
I remember Assassin's Creed. That was a letdown.
Uncharted.
Yeah, it was just. It's just man. There were some other ones too, but I it's not coming to my mind. But I so so and there was like a lot of reviews like IGN and stuff like that going on, and so
Hmm.
season one or episode one and right, episode one and two did a really good job of getting me hooked, especially those two particular seasons because you kind of like you get the
Yeah.
knowledge of the infected, and I think it's in season two when they're talking about uh um it was a city where where the scientist lady was looking at it because she had been researching this her entire life, and she's just talking about how this person was infected, but we don't know where the person that infected this person was, and it was just like, what do you have any advice? What should we do? She's just like
Hmm.
bombed the whole city, and it. A lot of people were like freaking out about it because I was seeing on TikTok and people talk about it because like this could like literally happen, like something like that. Like if the planet wanted to, it could easily do something like this. Um,
Hmm.
and I just hate. It was really cool watching them turn. Also,
Mm.
particularly in the first episode, we see Joel's daughter. kind of like at the neighbor's house while he's away at work, and I believe the grandmother or the grandmother was like already turning, but she wasn't full blown infected just yet. And it's just, oh man, the whole scene. It's just those first two
Oh, it
episodes
was
were
good.
just wild. And they did such a good job of catching your attention and getting you hooked in it. And then episode two, we get the clickers, very scary to that was very like just scary and creepy to deal with. And just watching how people got infected, because like that scene towards the end, when they find out that Tess is infected, you
Mhm.
see all this just this hordes of infected like rise up and head towards them. It was just like so creepy watching it just like penetrate his body. It was just disgusting. And then he kissed her. It was just that was so
Yeah.
gross. It's just so gross. I loved it
Yeah,
though.
that was super disturbing.
Yeah. So the first two episodes were they kind of like side by side comparisons to the game?
So for the most part, they did say pretty true. The first episode, you definitely got more of Sarah. So it starts off pretty much the same way, where it's kind of in Sarah's perspective, but it's only that night. Whereas in the show, you get to see kind of her whole day
Mhm.
and how the rest of the town is dealing with like the rumors that are going on. You kind of hear it in the news. You hear when she goes to get Joel's watch fixed, the lady kind of freaks out and kicks her out of the store
Oh yeah.
because all this stuff is happening. You didn't get that in the game. You only got Sarah waking up at night and things are like happening all of a sudden. Or I guess you get a small scene where she's talking about his birthday, but that's all you get. So that getting more expansion on Sarah as a character, getting that connection with her before what inevitably happens was awesome. The girl who played Sarah in the show, Nico Parker, did such an amazing job in such a short amount of time of just kind of like catching your heart. So it really
Yeah.
pulls on your heartstrings at the end. Um, but yeah, so for the most part, it was pretty on par. It's kind of the second part is where you get, or I'm sorry, the second episode is where you start getting those differences, especially with the infected. The infected in the game don't act like that. You don't get tendrils. It's all bites or spores. So it's a whole mechanic for the gameplay,
Right.
but you have different sections where you have to put on a mask because if you breathe in the spores, then you get infected. So the whole tendril thing was super interesting and disgusting at the same time. You were talking about the cold opening for episode 2, where you're in Indonesia and you find out what is it that the infection or the fungus started in a flour mill,
Yeah.
and which is super creepy because like you don't even think about. Well, I think about it because I'm gluten intolerant, but
Oh,
you don't think
okay.
about the amount of stuff that flour is in
Yeah.
and wheat products. So like the likelihood if this happened and it spread that way,
Yeah.
the amount of people that would be screwed, that's crazy to think about. And then yeah, like having a scientist be like, well, there's nothing we could do. You have to bomb the cities. Like no chance.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. But
Yeah.
I thought that was so good, and you can tell for sure that Craig Mazin, he did Chernobyl, and you feel Craig Mazin's artistry and view on things in those cold openings. I thought that was so awesome to see. Um,
Yeah. I
and
I've not
then
I haven't seen Chernobyl. I don't
you
think
should.
that's on HBO Max, right?
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I thought. I know of it, but I haven't seen anything about it just yet.
If you like that style of kind of like it's that like serious but like thrilling dramatic type,
Right.
Chernobyl is really good. You should watch that.
Hey. I'm gonna have to definitely check that out.
No, yeah. And then
Uh,
obviously episode 2 ends with Tess,
yeah.
her death. And um it was very different in the game. So that was a new one for me. In the game, you get Fedra showing up, and she's still bit, but Fedra is the one that kills her.
Which one do you like more? Did you like the game or the TV version?
You know, it's really hard because I think she makes a sacrifice in both, but I think it makes more sense for the infected, because why would Fedra out of nowhere be like, oh, these people escaped our QZ, so we have to go find them? And yet you never really think about that when you're playing, but it was so creepy. The kiss of death was so creepy and disturbing that I kind of love it. So I think I prefer the show.
Okay. Yeah, that was just some wild stuff for sure.
No, I know a lot of people hated that so much to the point where like they were like so disturbed where they thought that it shouldn't have even been included. And I think if it gives you that much of a visceral reaction, props to whoever made that choice, because that was amazing.
Right. And then we move on to episodes 3 and 4. So episode 3, we get one of my favorite actors, Nick Offerman. I don't remember the other guy's name.
Shoot.
So obviously episode 3 was very full of controversy from a lot of people about the direction of how the show went. I've seen people talk about how it was really cool to see these two characters get more exposure. Because I think in the game, from what I see people talked about, that wasn't really the case. It was completely different.
Oh yeah.
I didn't care I was not as invested in episode 3. It was still a good episode. I think part of it, what it was like I was very interested in seeing, because towards the beginning of the episode, they're walking towards Bill and Frank's house, or at least their location, and Joel is talking to Ellie. There's like obviously there's stuff that he doesn't want her to see, and we kind of like see like this little riverbed of bones like laid out across it, and obviously it does like a quick jump, a time jump back to where people were being evacuated from this town and everything like that, and it showed the mother and her child. I thought that's where it was going to go. I thought we were going to follow them, and I kind of like ultimately, not necessarily see their demise, but go along and see what happens. Because I think, if I remember right, what did Joel say? I'm trying to remember all of it. He was talking about how, like, if there wasn't enough room in like camps and stuff like that, they sort of basically just got rid of people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't overpopulated. And so I thought that was going to be an interesting aspect to go through and see. But again, it was still a good episode. I love Nick Offerman. He was very Doomsday Prepperish in this opening scene, which a lot of people who are preppers would probably do the same thing. So it was very, very cool to see. What about you? What are your thoughts on episode 3?
Yeah, so episode 3 definitely had a lot of controversy in the game community. Personally, I'm going to talk about another episode that I really, really loved later, but this one it's in my running for my favorite episode, regardless of how much it's changed. So this completely deviates from the game. None of this happened. So this one for me was exciting watching it, just being able to see so much different stuff, but even down to their relationship between Bill and Frank was completely different. In the game, If anyone wants to play the game, don't listen to me because I'm just going to tell you what happens. But in the game, you're still with Joel and Ellie, and you come into this. It's a much bigger town. It's called Billstown. That's the level, and it's just full of like traps, and kind of like the same thing that Bill does in the show. It's just traps everywhere, you know. And you meet this guy, and he's just like the rudest person ever. And you get a lot of good dialogue. And I know a lot of people didn't like this episode because they felt like it was either filler or they were expecting to see some of the interactions between Bill and the characters that we had in the game, because they are very funny. But I think what we got was so much more worth it. But anyway, so in the game, you have Bill. There's no mention of Frank until the very end. You get a few mentions of like, oh, you know, he mentions a partner, and you're not sure what he really means by that, other than like someone that he was worked with, whatever you might think. And you don't actually get to know their relationship unless you pick up a collectible item. You might not even know their relationship unless you pick this up and read it.
Okay.
But basically they you know, they're looking for a battery. Frank stole it. He's trying to run away because Bill is the worst person ever. He doesn't ever want to see him again. And in the end, he gets bit, and he actually kills himself. So it's very dark, and not nearly as beautiful as this episode.
Right.
But this episode, my God, I love the deviation. I love the small beauty of their relationship and being able to find that kind of love and comfort in a world where that shouldn't exist anymore. Right down to like, oh my God, am I gonna cry? The strawberry scene, oh my God, beautiful. Being able to just see the love between two people, and such a small thing. And then obviously just like the ending. Oh my God, I loved everything about this. I think Nick Offerman did an amazing job at showing, you know, the kind of like he wasn't as mean as Bill in the video game, but you still got like that edge from him.
Right.
And obviously he was supposed to be a parallel to Joel in some way. And then Frank just being as lovable and patient as he was. Murray Bartlett, that's who plays Frank.
Oh, okay.
But in the end, I will just say straight out, I sat and watched the credits, and I was sobbing.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
You're probably not the only one.
No, definitely not. But I thought it was a beautiful episode.
I saw somewhere, this may have been TikTok, or maybe it was Twitter. It might have been TikTok. It was somebody I followed, somebody commented. The wine that they drank towards the end of the episode is a wine that has, I think, a strawberry aftertaste to it.
It has notes of strawberry. Yeah. Guess who bought that wine?
And I was like, of course. Of course. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And it was a good episode. I mean, I did enjoy it. I just loved it. The interactions were really the main part of the episode I liked, because I just loved how because they're talking. I believe it's Bill wants to mow the lawn, basically, because you know, they're just letting things go. Everything's kind of getting run down. Grass is overgrowing, and it's just like, did you get into this small argument talking about the government being Nazis? And
oh my God,
it's just like, oh my! I was like, I love this. This is great. And then he was like, and then towards the end of the disagreement, he was like, okay, good. Because we're having friends over. Because I've been speaking to a lovely lady on the radio, and he's just like, "You what?" and then we get Joel and and I think I already got her, and Tess, and so I
Yeah.
thought, and even that interaction, how Frank just has like a gun pointing at Joel the entire time, and just like you can
Right.
calm down now. You're fine. Um,
No, yeah. And I think that's the part where I understand. I don't think it was a filler episode. I think it showed a lot of important things to me, but maybe it's because I already have like an idea of what's happening. But just the parallels between Joel and Bill, Joel being closed off and Bill like having someone who opens him up,
mhm,
obviously showing, where Joel could be
right,
if he opened up. Whereas actually, that's a big thing in the game where Bill is supposed to be still a parallel, but shows what Joel could be if he doesn't open up.
right.
So it's interesting that they switched those. But yeah, just the little things, like you said, the I like to call it a tea party. It was looked like a tea party they were having. It was very cute. But seeing like Frank and Tess like get along so well while Joel and Bill are like staring daggers at each
Yeah.
other across the table. And then Frank was such a sweet, sweet presence that I felt bad that he was in that situation. But I loved Murray as Frank. That was he he touched my heart.
And so obviously the episode ends with Ellie and Joel heading out. Then we
Mhm.
get to episode 4, Kansas City. So this episode and episode 5 is where I was a little annoyed
Mm,
because the the people in Kansas City felt very wasteful to me
mhm.
because I didn't see a point in them being around other than being another obstacle in the way or just something to help drive the plot forward. Now, obviously, it's probably different in the game, but it felt
When you say
like,
the people,
oh, I'm
when you
talking
say
about
the
like,
people in Kansas City, like the
uh,
Raiders, like
yes,
Kathleen's group.
yeah,
Okay.
Kathleen, yes. I I just didn't care for them. Like, because
Hmm.
you really don't really get a good sense of what. Well, Kathleen, you kind of do, and for most part, you kind of get an idea of what they're about. But it felt like there should have been more with them than what we got because it was just 2 episodes, and then they're kind of all dead in
Yeah.
episode 5, and so it's just
Yeah.
like. It's like, well, I just didn't care. I mean, like the deaths really didn't mean much other than the cool, like, Mortal Kombat fatalities that were going on. And so, but but episode 4, ow, it was rough to watch because we get into the situation where Joel and Ellie are ambushed by those, I believe there's 3 guys,
Hmm.
and obviously Joel takes them out. He doesn't hear
Right.
the third guy come up, and Ellie has to go out and she shoots him, but I don't know if she was like shooting to wound or shooting to kill. Because I mean, she ultimately, I believe, she paralyzes him
Hmm.
by accident, and it was rough to listen to. I kind of had like turn it volume down because it was rough listening to that kid like begging for his life and screaming out for his mom. I was just like, I gotta turn this down. I don't know if I can really deal with that. And then obviously, Joel kills him. And I was just like, it's just rough to that
Hmm.
was just rough to deal with. And then we get the introduction to Sam and Henry, which we'll talk about that in episode 5, but pretty
Right.
cool little introduction with those 2 characters. So how is that? I guess how's episode 4 and a little bit of 5, is that compared to the game?
So, um, oh, man. So 4 and 5, you're talking about the group of Raiders in Kansas City.
I don't know what
They
their name was.
they Yeah, I don't even know if they really had a name.
Oh.
But in the game, It's not Kansas City, but not that it matters. But the group of raiders, they're called hunters in the game.
Oh,
No names. There's nothing to do with them that really matters in your journey. I thought it was a really interesting choice that they felt the need to give these people names. I have an idea and a theory of why they did this, having to do with how the story plays out after this season. And because they introduced elements that I think will come into play and make it make sense later. So maybe that was why they chose to do it, just kind of like building blocks to what they want to do later on. But I kind of felt the same way.
Yeah.
I think Kathleen was a really interesting character, and I think the casting choice for her especially was very interesting, given how she speaks and how she presents herself, being like this hardened leader. And obviously, eventually, you learn why she is the way she is because of Henry. But I don't think we had enough time to care.
Yeah.
Just an interesting fun fact: her right-hand man, Perry, is actually Jeffrey Pierce, who plays Tommy in the game.
I saw that.
So
I actually saw that today.
Yeah, so you get a lot of cool little cameos, and I'll obviously bring them up as we get through them, besides Marlene being Marlene in the show and game. But yeah, I was very open-minded. I know a lot of people I saw online were very closed off to it almost immediately. It's almost like she opened her mouth and they were like, no, we don't want that.
Yeah.
I tried to be open-minded about it, but in the end, I kind of felt the same way. Like it wasn't really useful.
Yeah.
I think the time could have been used a lot better, to maybe expand upon other things or spread out some more, especially as we're getting to the end where like it was like hit after hit stuff happens. Or just expanding on Sam and Henry, because I actually have a real bone to pick about that as well.
Oh, okay.
But you mentioned the kid in the beginning of episode 4, and I don't know who that actor is, but my God, did he give it his all? Because even the same, like for me too, the like pleading for his life, screaming for his mom, like I felt for the kid. Oh my God. And I know that Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin had said before the show started that they were limiting violence in comparison to the game. Obviously, the game, there's constant violence. And I think this is one of those moments where it really pays off because you're seeing a real person in a role where it's hard to watch. Like, it was hard to listen to, it was hard to watch, and seeing Joel do what he had to do was difficult. But also, it was your first chance of seeing that Ellie, she likes to pretend to be this hardened character who nothing phases, you know, a real, like, I feel like we're all like that as kids. Like nothing phases us. We're like the strongest people in the world, but this is your first time seeing that she's scared and she doesn't know what she's doing. So that was really interesting because she like shot him. I don't know if she paralyzed him. Maybe she did, and I just didn't catch that. But she definitely like hit him in the butt or something.
Yeah,
but even that alone, like,
because he was saying like he couldn't feel his legs or he couldn't move his legs or something along those lines. So that's why I was kind of like. That. I was like, is she just paralyzed? Obviously, again, it's not clear what she was really trying to do. Was she really trying to maybe just wound him to get him off of Joel, or was she trying to actually kill him? So that's why it's so interesting to watch that scene, because obviously you can't. It just shows her pointing the gun. You don't see how she's pointing the gun,
right?
But yeah, that was just such a
right. And I think it was supposed to also, because I in the beginning of the episode, you see Joel and Ellie kind of like scavenging for supplies, and she stumbles upon an infected below the gas station that they're in, and you kind of see like this weird, I don't want to say weird, but it's an interesting scene where it's very you can almost see like an emotional reaction to how she views infected or views killing even. So like you see that scene and you're thinking like, oh, okay, she may be a little psychopathic. Maybe she does this
Mm,
or has done it before or something. And then you get her in a situation where it's a person and she like freezes.
yeah.
And I think this is a big call back to what happened before what we see, and we'll get into that
Oh
in
yeah.
episode
That's what. Yeah,
7.
that's what I was
So.
thinking. I was thinking that as well. And so we meet. So, what's your gripe about Sam and Henry? What's that about?
So Sam and Henry, it's generally the same in the game, besides Sam is deaf in the show now. And Henry committed this huge act against this raider group that was not in the game. Um, I So it was interesting. I did listen to the companion podcast for the show to listen to what the creators, like why they made certain choices
Okay.
going into and different changes. And they had said that they wanted Sam, they have a deaf actor as Sam, but they didn't want to make Sam's shtick being deaf. And I get that. I understand like
Mm,
wanting to be inclusive for actors, people, but not wanting it to be like a disability in that way. However, in this world, I feel like how can you not make that a big deal? When
right.
you have things like clickers where, one sound and you're dead. I think it was an element that they could have used better. Instead, it was just kind of like, yeah, he's deaf, but we get around. We just do what we do.
Right.
And then going into the whole reason why Henry is on the run with Sam, giving Sam leukemia and it being like Henry needing to get medicine, while it makes sense, like, okay, yeah, Henry's going to do whatever he needs to do to help his brother, it just felt like another hit to Sam. Like, oh, you make a character, he's deaf, and now he has cancer. And just, it felt very like, oh, by the way, we're going to throw this at you. And it doesn't really have to make sense, but you're going to take it. And I just I
Right.
didn't vibe with it. It wasn't my thing. Um, uh, yeah, that's my gripe about that.
I so he had so wait. I must have missed that part. He had leukemia. I knew
Hmm.
he was deaf, but I must have missed that part, or at least some hint towards that, because I did not know that. Um.
Yeah, it was when I think it was Henry explaining why he was on the run. And he explained that, the group used to have a great leader, which ended up being Kathleen's brother.
Mm,
But Sam got.
oh, there it goes. That
Okay.
was weird. It's okay. I can just cut that part out. That's not a big deal.
Okay.
That was weird. He's just like, you were just talking and he's just like froze. I was like, what just happened here?
Oh gosh, where was I?
Oh, you were talking about why Henry and Sam are on the run from
Right. So
Kathleen's brother.
did yes. So Kathleen's brother was the leader. Did you? Oh shoot! Hold on. Cut this out too, because now I don't know what you heard. Um, like, what exactly did it end at?
You were talking about because we were talking about Sam having leukemia, and you're
Okay.
explaining why they were on the run from Kathleen's brother or something. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just start from the beginning of that. Um, yeah. So Henry, I think, explained that in order to get medicine that Sam needed because he had leukemia, they had to make a deal with Fedra.
Hmm.
And Fedra said, like, sure, yeah, we'll do that for you, but you have to do something for us. And that was to take down the leader of the rebel group within the city, which ended up being Kathleen's brother. And that's why Kathleen is after Henry.
Oh.
So it's all tied around this child having cancer, and I just don't know if it needed to be that way. I don't know. It just felt a little forced for me.
You honestly could probably now thinking about it. you probably could have just done the episode how you did with the previous one, where you're just kind of mainly focused on Bill and Frank. You probably could have. I think if you would have done episode 4 kind of the same way, focusing maybe more on Henry and Sam and actually showing why they're in the situation that they're in, and then bring in Joel and Ellie. Which they kind of do that in episode 5 when they're doing a little bit of the flashback. But I think you probably could have skipped that if you would have just focused it more on in episode 4. But overall, they eventually sneak up on Sam and Ellie, not Sam and Ellie, but Joel and Ellie, which it's just like I don't know why I got frustrated watching him do this, but like he was just like sprinkling glass on the floor, and I was just like, you're still laying in front of the door. They could just shoot you. I was like, that doesn't make sense to me, but I was like, whatever. But obviously they wake up and then they're captured. And then we go into episode 5, where, they do a little bit more of a backstory, somewhat with Henry, Sam, and the elderly guy who Kathleen shoots in episode 4. And then we all get to run around, get the plan to go out together, escape. Very cool. I love the little. I love watching Ellie and Sam interact. It was almost like a big sister, little brother kind of relationship that was going on. Both were just having fun, and Joel and Henry just watching. It was very, very cool. But for me, obviously, the highlight of the episode 5 is towards the end, and I was like, so number one, I felt bad for this old guy that was shooting at them from the tower, and I was just like, buddy, don't just put the gun down, don't do this. And he turns and swings. It's like, come on, man. And then man, the coolest part in this whole season 1 was obviously they're surrounded by the Raiders, and the ground falls apart, and it's just like this horde of running infected. Like, that's leading up to that scene. I was like, oh man, this is crazy. I was like, this can't get any worse. And then all that happens, and then it's like, because they did such a good job at shooting it, because they did like this slow camera zoom in towards it, and then just hundreds of them. I was like, shit, what the? I was like, what is all? And they just came out of nowhere. I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And then you get the big blobby one. I don't know what that one's called, but I was like,
the bloater.
I was like, oh my god, this guy's a beast. I was like, freaking. They're shooting at him. I was like, freaking, I'll be running for my life right now. I would not be dealing with that. And then Kathleen's secondhand man gets a Mortal Kombat fatality on him. I think that's the same in the game. I saw people comparing the scenes on TikTok, and so I was just like, oh my gosh, he got. That's a terrible way to go, buddy. But and then the creepy flexible infected was I was like, I don't want to do this. This is disgusting. And then again, obviously Kathleen meets her end, but I was glad. But I think again, you missed an opportunity to probably learn more about her, to where her death is more satisfaction than what it was. I mean, it was cool. I was like, listen, I was happy when she died. Clearly, I know that sounds morbid, but I was happy for that. But I think if we would have had more information and seen more about her interactions with Henry before, her with her brother, get in her mind to see why she's doing the things she's doing, I think it would have hit a little bit better. But again, it was just, I was like, that whole scene was wild. I was just like, that's a lot of junk going on right now. So before we get to the end of episode 5, what about you? What did you think about it?
Yeah, so the big thing with episode 5 obviously is a lot to do with Kathleen and Henry and Sam and everything. Um I it's the same thing. I just wish we had more to go off of with Kathleen and her group. The end scene, that the infected scene, first of all, is almost reminiscent of something that comes from the game. The sniper shooting down is a big part of that level. The infected coming out happens a little bit differently, and you don't have a bloater in that scene. But my God, the bloater in this scene was incredible. Getting to see him just like take down everything in his way, and yeah, Perry gets torn apart by him, and that does, when you get caught by a bloater in the game, he does that animation of it like rips your jaw down and your head up, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, because you can hear him screaming and everything, and it was just, no.
But it was so good seeing like just that little like Easter egg of like, hey guys, remember when this happened to you 50 times in the game? But yeah, the clicker child doesn't exist in the game. Obviously, we don't kill children in video games. But I never even thought about like kids becoming that, and that being how Kathleen died after she said, kids die all the time. I think it was very satisfying, but you miss that, like, it was satisfying, but not as satisfying as it could have been.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that scene. I watched a lot of behind the scenes of how they made that whole scene, and they literally took, it didn't exist. It's all a set. That whole town is a set. And seeing like everyone practically dressed as clickers and the guy dressed as a bloater. Oh my God. Like, if there's a few scenes I would love to be involved in, but that one, I would love to have seen that in person.
Oh man, that was such a cool highlight of that episode, was just that entire sequence. And something interesting I just now remembered was, I think it was somebody on TikTok that was talking about it, or maybe they said it in the show, but they were talking about how much people hate Fedra, but when they have the opportunity and they rise up and take over, they become worse than what they were just dealing with. And I was like, that is, and it's essentially that is what was happening with Kathleen and his group. They were obviously, because again, it seems like Fedra was around. They rose up, they took over, and they, like, because you saw that scene in episode 4, or maybe it was earlier episode 5, where she essentially like executes a whole bunch of people for being essentially snitches, which is understandable, but context, again, that's very villainous. Like, you are worse than what you were dealing with before, because you just nonchalant just like kill them all. There was like 10, maybe 15 people, and you just didn't care. And so I was like, oh man, that's in real world, that probably would happen, that kind of situation. And so it's pretty accurate from a real world perspective of something like that happening. And then we get to the end of episode 5, and obviously Sam shows Ellie that he's bit. And I was very curious on how her immune system worked. Obviously, you find out at the end of the season 1, but I'm very curious on like, how does it work for her? Because she mentioned it's in her blood, so she tries to use her blood, and I guess you could kind of see it coming. Towards the end of, like, she wakes up and Sam is like looking out the window, and so I saw on TikTok again, I saw somebody talk about how Sam Sam probably didn't go to sleep, and and he faced the window, so when he turned, he wouldn't see Ellie, and so, but man, that was again, that was just hard to watch. Just Bella Ramsey really, she does such a good job throughout this entire season 1 of really selling it. That scene, she does such a fantastic job of selling how scary she is, her crying out for Joel, and then you get the interaction with Henry and Joel, and it's just so much, and then he just ultimately shoots his little brother. And I mean, honestly, you're just kind of like, I said that my jaw, I was watching this at work, because usually I don't watch it like the Sunday it comes out, because usually I'm binge watching X-Files up now. But slow days at work, I watch it at work. And so I was at work with my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God. And then obviously Henry,
how do you watch that at work?
Yeah.
I'd be crying at my desk with like tissues.
Somebody gonna come in like, what are you doing crying? What are you crying about? None. Don't worry about it. So I was just, and then obviously Henry just takes his own life, and it's just, that's all. It's just, it's so traumatic to watch that, and then thinking like Ellie would, you have a cure to all this, but you couldn't save, you couldn't save Sam. It's just, that was just, and you could tell again by Bella Ramsey's performance, you could tell it like deeply bothered her, and it's just, I hated that. It just, this show did such a good job of really hitting you with emotional punches, and so that was just wild. What about you?
So that's such a hard scene, because it happens almost the same way in the game. Definitely their fates are the same. It's just kind of how we get there is a little bit different. In the show, you do have that scene where Sam shows Ellie that he was bitten, and you get that kind of child naivete that Ellie thinks that, well, if I'm some kind of cure, then I have to, like, maybe I could do something about it. And I think it was I didn't like it at first, because it just seemed a little strange. Like why would that work? But then thinking like a kid, like, of course you're going to think that you can do something. If everyone's telling you that you're some kind of miracle, well, wouldn't you try? So I think that was really interesting. And then obviously it doesn't work, and you get the next scene. You're right, like Bella, oh my God. When it gets to those like heightened emotions where it's scared, mad, Bella just sells it so well. She does it so well that you almost forget that you're watching an actor on the screen. But yeah, so it was interesting. The one thing I noticed, and I'm not sure if everyone feels this way, but it was a little difference in Henry's reaction to having to kill his brother. So in the game, it feels very much like, oh my God, I couldn't save my brother. I tried so hard to do everything, but I couldn't save him. And then in the show, though, it's the way the actor says certain things. It felt very much more like he was in shock that he had the capability to do that without thinking. That, like, oh my God, I killed him. Not the world, but I did. And that kind of broke me even more. That kind of made it like that much sadder for me, and it kind of shows that like human emotion and reaction again. And there's a lot of moments like that throughout the whole thing where all these characters are so fleshed out, where it makes every sad moment that much sadder. And then obviously, Ellie almost blames herself to a degree, and whether that's for Sam being bit or not being able to save him. And then the little shoot, what's
Oh
that
yeah.
thing that Sam was writing
Oh,
on?
kind of like a sketch pad, not sketch pad, but
Yeah,
etch a sketch. So I think that's what it's called.
yeah, like that thing, putting it on their grave, and you could see that guilt, and it leads into the next episode where she still has that guilt.
Yeah.
My God, yeah,
Yeah, that
that was
was.
it was sad.
And I wondered too in that moment for Henry, like after he shoots Sam, like in his mind, is he obviously he's in shock for what he just did, but I wonder in his mind, obviously he's more likely blaming himself because
Hmm.
like in his mind, maybe he's thinking, what if he didn't run into Joel and Ellie? What if it would have just been him and Sam and they just went out on their own? Would this situation have happened? You know,
Right.
it's just like there's probably like thousands of things running through his mind in that small moment of, you know, different what ifs and things like that. And he just ultimately pulled the trigger and you know, ended his life as well. And it was just rough to watch. I mean, you just had to, you know, kill your own brother. I mean,
Hmm.
technically, your brother died overnight. This was just
Right.
an infected, but still, it was still your brother. I mean, like I don't know. I don't know if there's many people that could do that. Like obviously, because in that
Right.
moment you're thinking of all the times you had with your loved one, whether it's a friend or family member, and you ultimately have to be the one to put them down.
Right.
Otherwise, you know they're gonna hurt people. So it was such a wild thing of emotions going on right there for sure. And then, like you said, Ellie carrying that guilt leading into episode 6.
Hmm.
Episode 6 is that's Jackson, right? I remember
Yes, it
right?
is.
Okay, that one that was interesting. This was a pretty chill episode. Um,
Right.
I this was which I was fine with because honestly, you it was nice. It was nice to have like a small, chill episode because everything was just so action packed for the most part, and just so much stuff that's been
Hmm.
going on. It was nice to kind of like just sit back and just nervously watching when Ellie and Joel get surrounded and that dog is sniffing them, and you're just kind of like, oh man, is the dog gonna tag? What's gonna happen?
Right.
Obviously, all things worked out, and they get reunited with Tommy. Uh, my favorite scene of the episode is where like they're eating in the little kitchen area, and I think Joel just mentioned to Ellie to mind her manners, and she just looks up, and there's a girl staring at her, and she's just like, "What are you looking at?" I was like, "Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, calm down." Which a lot of people said that's Dina.
Yeah. So
Who's
not
that?
confirmed, but very much not denied. So
Mm,
Dina's a big character in the second game. And there is an interaction that Ellie and Dina have in the game that talks about that moment where Dina first saw Ellie. And she says something like, I saw you um eating, and I was thinking like, who's that string bean eating all our food? So that like to say that's not Dina, I think is a stretch. I think it was Dina.
right. And so that was definitely that was a funny scene as well. And then another funny thing was like when they're walking and talking, and Tommy's wife was just talking about how like, you know, we do this, we do this, we do this, and Joel's like, oh, so you're a communist now. So it's just like, oh my gosh, that's great. But again, like this episode again focus does such a good job of really focusing on Ellie and Joel and that relationship,
Mhm.
because you get to the point where there's just this emotional breakdown of Joel talking to Tommy, you know, you letting him know what's happened and him thinking that he's going to get Ellie killed. You know,
Mhm.
Tommy's younger than him. Uh, so Tommy could probably do a better job of looking out for her. And did she overhear that conversation? Because I feel like I missed that because I know she left the movie theater and like while Joel was talking to Tommy, they did kind of like a an overlap of them talking, and it
Right.
showed Ellie walking, and so I was curious on if like she maybe overheard the conversation. Um, but it was just it was so rough to watch Joel talk about because obviously you could tell he's getting attached to Ellie as the season goes
Hmm.
on, but obviously he's being reminded of he couldn't protect Sarah and he may not be
Right.
able to protect Ellie, and so he wants Tommy to take her and everything, and then again, like it's just the acting. You get the scene of them in Ellie's room, and she's talking about how everybody has either died or left her except for Joel, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such good acting. This is so good. And I was just like,
Yeah.
this acting is killing me right now. They are just it's so good. I was just like, Joel, quit being a dick, man. What's the matter with you? I'm tired of this dude. Like I was getting frustrated with Joel. I was just like, come on, man, stop it. You do it. Stop it. But what? So what
Yeah.
did you think about the overall episode of them going to Jackson?
So I love this episode because, like you said, it does feel more chill, but the what happens in the episode, it's actually like one of their most action-packed episodes because so much happens between Joel and how he's feeling, how you're meeting like Maria and Tommy again, and how Ellie's feeling. You get so much from these
Mm-hmm.
characters that it feels like so much happens. Um, it was very interesting watching this too because Jackson is a city or town you don't see until the second game. You know it exists. You know that
Okay.
Tommy has a settlement in the game, but it doesn't take place in Jackson. And coming from that perspective, Jackson in the game versus the show is like one for one. It was incredible. Seeing that set, how they made Jackson from the game come to life was crazy. And that's another one of those places where it's like, God, I would do anything to just be on that set for one day. But so yeah, so I there was a big expansion upon Maria's character too, which I really appreciated. That you don't really get to see in the game, and you see her skepticism for Joel, and clearly Tommy has told her the things that they've done, the things that they did, and how Joel is, and you could see that how she interacts with Ellie is she's scared for her. She
Mm-hmm.
like doesn't want bad things to happen because all she heard was bad things from Tommy about Joel, and I don't doubt any of those things because from different things between this episode and little things that he said before, you get to see that Joel wasn't a great person
Right.
and maybe isn't a great person still, but is learning to open up more. And so that was awesome. And then obviously Ellie learns about Joel's past, about who he was before the outbreak with his daughter. Um, and for Joel, you get to see he's starting to get these panic attacks, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is triggered from what happened in the previous episode with Sam and Henry. And I think he is hitting that breaking point because he is seeing that he's more attached to this girl than he ever planned to be. And I think seeing Sam and Henry how that ended kind of broke him a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially getting to the very last episode, we get a story from him that is reminiscent of that moment with Sam and Henry. And that didn't exist in the game. There's a lot of little things for Joel that they added between like the substance abuse in the first episode, his panic attacks, his PTSD. That stuff didn't exist, and seeing them write that in, and Pedro being so good at conveying it,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's like panic attacks, they just happen. It's not words, it's feelings. It's your body's reaction, and seeing how he played that out. I know some people talk to me and they're like, "Oh, was he having like a heart attack?" And I could get that, but like from someone who experiences those
Right.
things, it's like the way he conveyed a panic attack was like, "Oh yeah, that's a panic attack." And then that leading into Tommy and Joel's conversations and everything. and seeing that breakdown of how he's feeling and him finally addressing how he's feeling. Those were such great scenes. There was the one in the bar and then the one in the workshop.
Yeah.
Those were both amazing, and seeing him completely break down in the workshop was hard.
Yeah.
In the game, Tommy is the one who decides, like, yes, I'm going to do this for my brother, while as in the show, it's Joel begging, like, if there's anything you can do for me, please just take her, because I can't. I failed everyone else in my life. I'm going to fail this. I can't handle it. And then going into Ellie and Joel's scene in the bedroom, that was almost one for one from the game. That's one of the iconic scenes from the game where it was like a lot of us were like, if we don't get this scene exactly how it played out in the game, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And they took it, and while some of it was tiny little things were different, for the most part, it was almost exactly the same, and it was like watching it come to life. And the breakdown of Ellie, like, finally admitting, like, I don't want to lose you, and then the like a final note of, like, I'm not your dad and you're not my daughter, and that's how they kind of left it until the morning. Yeah, like, Joel, why are you such a jerk?
Yeah, exactly. Because
you don't have to do that.
Because it was so rough. I was just like, because it was that one part where she was just like, Joel, I'm not her. I'm not your daughter. And he's just like, don't. I was like, oh my God, what is happening? I don't like this. It's like, come on now, let's settle down here a little bit. But that was rough. But then obviously the next day Tommy's getting ready to take her. Joel's already out there gonna steal a horse. But I think that was just an excuse. So clearly an excuse, because it's like your brother probably could have just gave you a horse anyway. So like he mentioned, and it was just like, listen, you have the right to choose. And I know Tommy, and she's just like, all right, let's go. We're done with this conversation.
Yeah.
We're me and you're together, so let's go. And so that was pretty cool. And then they head up, because they make it to that hospital or that college in that same episode, right?
Yep, university. Yeah. Yep.
And so they make it. That was a great ending sequence. It was a little bit of a. I was like, oh, this is a little hairy. There are people talking about the horse. They use a CGI horse.
So I was looking into that because I was, like, kind of annoyed that everyone kept talking about it. So the horse at the end that you see kind of just standing by Joel and Ellie, that horse is real. However, the horse, when you see Ellie shooting backwards, that was a fake horse.
Oh, I guess that probably makes sense on why you would need to use a fake horse.
Just like filmmaking stuff, I assume. But yeah, I did see a lot of people talking like that wasn't a real horse.
Well, because people were talking about that and then compare it to the episode from Sunday with the giraffe, and so that's why people were. I was like, I saw people like, man, they got a real giraffe. They couldn't get a real horse. I was like, oh my gosh, what are they talking about? But so 7 and 8. I'm trying to remember what they. I know.
Before we move on, I have one bone to pick with the ending of episode 6.
Okay.
So university. I feel like that could have been a little bit longer. And I think that's like, if we didn't have the whole Kathleen and Perry situation in Kansas City, I feel like that's kind of one of those things that we could have just extended a little bit. Because they go in, they obviously see that the Fireflies aren't there anymore,
right?
But they're going to this other place. So let's head there. And then suddenly there's people in the university, and they got to get out. And it just happens so fast.
Yeah.
Where we go from like, oh shoot, let's leave, to Joel is stabbed and like incapacitated. I feel so strongly that the struggle should have just been a little bit longer. It just felt like it went a little too fast for me. And I keep talking about the game so much, but that was very different in the game. it was very unrealistic in the game. In the game, Joel falls from a second story onto a rebar through his torso.
Oh my god!
So obviously we couldn't do that in real life. But I really do feel like it just should have been a little bit longer. That's it.
And another thing too was it was before he gets stabbed. They just get to the horse, and Ellie is like, "Joe, look out!" But in my mind, I'm like, "You're on a horse. You probably could have seen that guy coming well before you said something."
That's true, because it's not like they were close to the building.
Exactly. And I was just like, "That's." Before we move to 7 and 8, favorite characters are from episode 6 are the Native American couple.
Oh my god!
They were great. I loved it. He was just like, "You made him soup? Yeah, he was hungry." It's like, I was like, "Oh, I love these two."
No, they were fantastic.
People were like, "We got to protect these two at all costs." They are great. And so 7 and 8. I know 8 was the David episode.
Right.
I don't remember what 7 was.
7 was the Left Behind episode, so with Riley.
Yes, that episode. Oh, you now remember? Yes, that episode. That was a good episode too. I really enjoyed that one. I think my gripe with that was because obviously Ellie talks about it in the season 1 finale, but like I'll get to it in a second. But overall, it's pretty cool. We get a little bit of backstory on Ellie, and she is, I guess training to be a cop, like a police academy kind of thing. And,
the Fedra school.
Yeah, and so the build up was kind of, it was I really enjoyed it from the point where they got to the mall and onward. That's where I really felt like this episode really took off. Because obviously we learned that Riley is getting sent to Atlanta. I think she's getting sent to that location, and it's just it was so retro watching them play these video games and stuff. And
yeah.
So, question, because I was curious, and I probably figured this out on my own, but like, there's a scene where they're talking about like people robbing stores and stuff like that. They stole shoes and TVs, but they didn't steal anything from Bath and Body Works. And was there like a romance kind of connection? Was Riley and Ellie, or is that just kind of because there were moments where it felt like that's what it was hinting at, but maybe that's just me looking into it. Maybe that's just me looking into it. Maybe me looking into it. But it felt like there were like moments where the show was kind of like hinting at maybe probably more like Riley likes Ellie. But I could be wrong about that one. But that's what it kind of felt like, because just the way she would act.
You mean besides them kissing in it?
Oh wait, they kissed? Oh, I didn't see that part.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have missed that part.
You definitely picked it up.
Oh, I was probably had to like do a quick work. Again, I watched these at work, people.
Yeah, you're watching at work.
And so I probably had to do something, and I must have missed that part. Well, then never mind then. Anyway.
No, yeah, but it's definitely there, and they definitely pushed it a lot more. You get like those like teenage like little crush moments that I thought were super adorable. But yeah, there were definitely a lot of that.
I'll have to go back and watch that second half thing, because I was like, oh man, I was like, man, are they gonna kiss or something? Because there's like moments where like it seemed like you wanted to, and then but yeah, it was pretty cool just watching them hang out one last time. And obviously you get the infected scene, and it was really hard. I wasn't confused, but they were just watching that whole sequence of them fighting the infected, and I was just like, the way the camera does it, I guess it's just to obscure it. But I was just like, at what point did you get bit by this guy? Because a lot of the camera is showing like her being able to, like her arms being up and about, and like it doesn't really clearly show Riley getting bit. Now Ellie, I can get that because that rack of stuff fell on her and the infected, so I can see that. But Riley, I was just kind of like, well, how did you get bit? I didn't see that part, but that's a little sus right there. But this is where I wish they would have expanded it a little bit more, because episode 9, Riley's talking about how, or not Riley, but Ellie's talking about how she had to basically kill Riley. Me personally, I wish that was in that episode. I wish that was in episode 7.
Oh, okay.
Because it felt weird. Because at this point, I already know Ellie's infected, or she's a cure. Obviously, she doesn't know it, but it felt weird. Just the show ending with just those two just sitting there, and you kind of left to speculating, even though you kind of already know the answer. If we already know the answer, why not just go ahead and give it to us? We know Riley's going to turn. I would rather have love to see how Ellie would have, from probably more of a mental aspect, how she would have had to handle killing Riley. And thus her turning into the Riley that she kind of is, or the kind of Ellie that she is throughout the season 1. But again, that's just me. I think that's something they should have added. Just because I think that would have probably been a lot more towards showing again why Ellie is kind of the way she is and why she's afraid of losing Joel. Because she's like she mentioned, she's already lost so much, so many people. But that's just me.
Right. So I really liked this episode. I think they did a really good job, especially adaptation wise. A lot of it was 1-for-1. It was another episode that kind of just brought things to life. I've seen a lot of people talk about how it was a filler episode. And on one hand, I don't think so, because of the reasons you just said. It shows why Ellie is the way she is, and why she hesitates to kill, or how she got infected, why we know she's immune. But at the same time, this wasn't in the original game. The Left Behind was a DLC that came out almost a year after the first game. So you had no idea who Riley was outside of Ellie mentioning her at the end, and maybe once during she mentioned something. But so it's hard for me to push that it wasn't a filler when even in the game it wasn't important enough to put in. That being said, it's one of my favorite DLCs for games. I think it does show a lot. Riley and Ellie's relationship is incredibly important for the show, as it is for the game, because not only does it show why Ellie is the way she is, but it reveals she had a crush on Riley. It shows like who she looked up to, why she always strives for acceptance, because she does it with Joel too.
Yeah.
And I love Riley as a character, to be honest. I think Storm Reed did such a good job at bringing that character to life. It's hard because I have little tiny nitpicks here and there for the episode, especially how it ended. But overall, it was very, very good. In the DLC, it alternates from past to present, and it has a very big parallel to losing someone back then and potentially losing someone now, with Joel being, hurt, and Ellie taking care of him. And you get that last line of, what is it? It's something along the lines of, even if it's for a minute, for a day, or for a year, like, we do what we do to have these moments with the people that we love. And I love that so much. And I love that parallel between that with Riley and Ellie and Joel and Ellie. Overall, I think it was a great episode.
Yeah, it was very, very, very good. I did, like I said, I did enjoy the first half. I probably was like, but then, but after Riley comes back and they kind of like that point forward going into the mall, I was like, oh yeah, this is a really good episode. It's just that first part was kind of like, yeah. Because we see that too, because at this moment, Joel is telling Ellie to go back to Tommy and get him. And so Ellie is, the whole flashback is her. What does she want to do? Because in her mind, she probably knows if she leaves to go get Tommy, Joel's probably not going to make it. So she's going to do what she can to help save him. Which, leads into episode 8. This episode was, again, another wild episode. And oh my God, this episode really reminded me of a Walking Dead episode, because I believe it's the episode Terminus, where you kind of come to find out that these people are cannibals. But like,
right.
And so, but in this episode, David, I did not pick up on him until the end of the episode. Because I was seeing, because like after I watched the episode, I'll go and look and see what people say about it and things like that. And that's what I messaged. I was at work watching episode 8 when I messaged you, because I was like, is this guy a pedo? And because it clicked in my mind when Ellie was in the cage, and the way he put his hands on her, and I was like, wait a second, is this guy a pedo? So they're towards the beginning of that episode, they're all talking, because David's doing like this little. I have a gripe, but this is just more of a preference thing to me. But he's going through and they're doing like a little Bible study with them and everything, and they're talking about how, when they buried this little girl's dad.
Right.
This was her dad. Was her dad one of the guys that they got killed when Joel and Ellie went to? Okay, that's what I was making. I was making sure. They were talking about it, and I was just like, maybe, or because part of me thought like, well, maybe he's lying. Maybe they killed him so they can eat him. I don't know. So I thought he was lying about it. But they were talking about how they were running low on food and everything. And oh my God, it's just so disgusting. So gross. Because that guy brings. I remember somebody talking about this, because the guy, they're in the kitchen preparing the food for everybody. This is before David. I think was his name Henry. Maybe
James.
Okay. Before they came back with the deer, they were preparing dinner and everything, and the guy comes in with that bucket full of meat, and she was like, "What's this?" Venison. And again, this did not click in my mind whatsoever. So because I was not expecting this, and so they put it in there and everything, and like these people must have been really freaking hungry, because like once David sat down, all I guess did prayer and all that stuff, they all just went to town eating. I was like, God, he must be freaking hungry. And he like slaps that little girl. I was like, bro.
Oh yeah.
It's like, bro, what is this? And I was just like, this is. And her mom, I was like, her mom goes and gets him like silverware and stuff like that. And I was just like, woman, you're not married to him or anything like that. What are you doing? He just slapped your child. And it was just, oh my God, it was wild. And obviously, again, you come to find out they've been eating freaking people. And I was just like, dude, what the F is this? What is going on? Because like you have Joel coming across that barn with the decapitated bodies, and I was just like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, these people are eating people. It's just disgusting. And then it's just freaking David freaking pedo, man. I was just like, oh my god, it's just
Yeah.
because like I was like I had to like quietly do gestures at work because like I was just like because when he was just like just on top of Ellie, and I was just like, buddy, you care more like trying to get Ellie. The whole building's burning, and I was just like, what is going on here? And then obviously Ellie, kills him, and I was just like, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad you died. But then while all that's going on, you have Joel. Basically, I was really concerned. I was so concerned about this because she's giving him penicillin, and she doesn't know how much to give him. Although it probably should have said on the bottle, and she like gave him 2 full shots of it. And I was really scared she was accidentally going to kill him. And I was just like, I'm not a nurse, but I think that's too much, Ellie. So you need to cut back a little bit. And so, but he gets up like freaking a bat out of hell, takes out all those side guys. I was just like, ooh, you messed with that girl's. You took that man's daughter.
Yeah.
He ain't playing with y'all today. One of the things about this episode I hated, although it's a pretty good episode, one of the things I hated was that did these people know they were eating human? I assume they didn't, and that's what aggravates me is that these people, there wasn't like this big revelation of them realizing what they've been doing. Like little girl, you were probably eating your dad, and you didn't even realize it.
Yeah,
and it's just, I felt like again, it was just like I would have loved to see kind of like a town revelation that they have been eating people all this time. But obviously it didn't happen. And like nobody comes to check out that the kitchen's burning, and it's just, I was like, what is this? What's going on in this? Does everybody sleep in this round? It was just something. But what are your thoughts?
So this episode is my favorite episode. I said I really loved episode 3, and that's my favorite, like outside new storytelling kind of thing. This is my favorite adapted episode. I thought it was, a lot of the aspects were better than the game. David, if you ever look at his game model, if you look at him, like, oh, this guy's creepy. This guy's weird.
Right.
But like seeing him and how he originally, just the storytelling, the way they wrote him, and you think like, oh, maybe he's good. Maybe it's not bad. Maybe this is a good person. He's having Bible study. He has people he cares about. He's offering this girl medicine. Maybe he's not a bad guy. And then you get that twist of like, oh, by the way, we've lost a few people because of a man and a little girl. And it's like, oh shit, Ellie's screwed. And I thought he was just so well written because he's so slimy, but it's all behind the scenes. Like, you can never tell. And it's so scary because there are so many people like that in real life.
Yeah.
So they made him like a little too real for me. But it was so good. So regarding people eating people, I don't think the town knows. And I think it's just very hush hush. And I get the feeling that they probably, maybe in the back of their mind, know like something about this is a little weird. We apparently don't have food, but we have food. So maybe it's like a out of sight, out of mind type thing. I don't think they knew that they were eating, or that the girl was eating her dad. But the minute I like put that together, I was eating when I was watching the episode. I'm like, I don't really feel like eating anymore. That was pretty gross.
Oh, because I was watching it because she was just like, when can we bury my dad? And he was just like, the ground's too hard to do that right now. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But then as the episode goes on, and I was just kind of like, you're not going to bury him, are you? That's not what's going to happen here, is it? So I was just like, oh, it's just like, geez, I was like, this guy's just, this whole town is
No,
weird.
he's
I was
something.
just like, this whole
Yeah.
place is just freaking weird. I was like, I don't want to do this
No.
anymore.
No, it was, and then just like the culty feel of it was very like I know it exists, like I know
Yeah.
that would
Oh
happen.
yeah, definitely. And because like again, real life now we're even in an apocalyptic world, that will probably happen. And so
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
wow. Oh man, that was
So
just
the cannibalism, that's the cannibalism is just like one branch of the disgusting tree that this episode is.
yeah.
Um, so what is it? So Ellie gets caught. Ellie, there's these amazing scenes between Bella and I don't recall the man who plays David, but he was also very very good.
Mhm.
Where you know Ellie is in a situation where she's never been before, and she has no idea how she's going to get out. And the way that Bella plays all these scenes, the like coyness and the unsure, and then the rage.
Right.
My God, this is the episode where I like no one can tell me that Bella did a bad job because she is Ellie in every aspect
Yeah.
of the character. And then just a fun fact, which I'm sure you probably know if you have been reading about the episodes, but David's right hand man, James, is played by Troy Baker in the show,
Yep.
who is Joel in the game.
And
So seeing him,
yes, and he also, I when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this man now because he also plays the clone troopers in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So he does that too, and I think he also voice acts the Joker in Batman Arkham Origins, and so I was just like, love it. I love it already.
Troy Baker's he is, if you've watched any animated show or played any game, there's like an 85% chance Troy Baker's in it. And he's probably your favorite character because he's always booked and he's just very good at what he does. So seeing him in the show, like, I'm a big fan of Troy Baker. So I was waiting the entire season. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to see Troy.
He did such a good job. So I love it.
Oh my God, it was. And there's that scene where Joel, he gets up, he is looking for Ellie, and he has that torture scene. I was really hoping that Troy would be the person that Joel was torturing because seeing Joel kill Joel was something I really wanted to see. But at the same time, having Ellie kill Joel, that was great too.
Oh God, he went, that's a terrible way to go.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, the axe to the machete to the jugular. Yeah. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And then
yeah, so you see Joel's rampage. This is the first time besides the first episode where you're really seeing like what Joel is capable of, and that stuff going back to what Maria thinks about Joel. Mm-hmm. Now we're seeing like why she thinks these things because this is how he is or was and what he's capable of. And especially when someone that he cares about is in danger.
Yeah, especially someone who...
So I love Joel's rampage.
Especially now that someone who he probably now sees as a daughter. So exactly. So he's definitely not going to lose her a second time. And
right.
Which is a good transition into episode 9. That whole thing was right. Nuts. And I enjoyed... just the conversations towards the beginning of the episode with them, and you can tell there's something that's on Ellie's mind, and Joel was just at this point he was just kind of like let's just not do this, let's just go back to Jackson, let's go back to Tommy, and Ellie's just like we can't half do this. Mm-hmm. And so the whole giraffe scene was really cool. That was very awesome. But it's just, it was, I wasn't expecting to see Marlene again, honestly. I don't know if that's like that in the game or not, but I was not expecting to see her again. I thought maybe she would have showed back up in season 2 at some aspect. But oh man, that hospital scene, and then the fact that you learn that this is probably in the game, but like me watching and hearing that, like, wait, the only way to make this cure is to kill Ellie, and you don't even know if it's really gonna work, and so and he just, again, Rampage Joel comes out, and he just goes on a freaking murderous spree. I was like, oh my god,
right.
I was like, this is a one-man army, y'all. It's like there's like 15 of you guys, and he's taking you all out, and it was just,
yeah.
I was really shocked that he killed Marlene. This was just me watching it and me thinking, I was like, okay, she's probably gonna be like a season 2. They're probably gonna stretch her into season 2 somehow. But I was not really expecting on which, but it makes sense on why he would kill her, because they would just come after her, and so that was interesting to watch. And then I was just like, and I saw people post this clip from the game where they're kind of at Jackson, and Ellie can probably tell that Joel's not telling the truth about what happened at the hospital. And she's talking about, like, is what really happened? And he's just like, yes. I was like, wait, season 2 drama, here we go. And so, and she was just like, okay. And then it just ends right there. I don't know if it ends like that in the game or not, but it was interesting to watch it, just like, she's like, okay, and then ends. So,
yeah.
That was just wild. All right, let me hear your thoughts on this.
So this episode was the shortest episode of the entire season. It was right about like 45 minutes.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Which checks out. Yeah, it was very short. I mean, if you're going to what the rest of the story is, like, they didn't really have that much to work with. So I know a lot of people were saying that it should have been expanded on. There should have been more time. And I feel like that's more of a personal thing, like not wanting to let go, because there really wasn't that much of the story left. And they even added some stuff. You know, you had in the very beginning, you have the scene of Anna, Ellie's mom.
Oh, yeah.
And Marlene.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. That's stuff that doesn't exist in the game. I just broke my pen.
Good job.
But the last couple cameos are in this episode. So Ellie's mom is played by Ellie from the game, Ashley Johnson.
Oh yeah.
So I love seeing her cameo.
So weird. Just there were moments watching her performance where she looked like Bella Ramsey. And that was really crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, she looked just like her.
I know. It's so cool to see that too, because going back to like way before about the controversy of Bella, why people didn't like her, and then seeing like them two together, I don't know. Yeah. I love them both. Bella's such a good job. But yeah, so seeing how Ellie is immune, kind of, but seeing Marlene in that, and you kind of get that a little tiny glimpse of why Marlene knows Ellie, or her relationship to the family and whatnot. I wish that was more expanded upon, because going to the very end, you lose the sympathy for Marlene. So in the game, it's kind of like, it feels established that Marlene and Ellie have some kind of kinship. You don't know how long they've known each other, but you know that they know each other very well. And I feel like you kind of lose that. You get that Marlene and Anna have been friends forever, apparently since they've grown up together. But that doesn't really translate to caring for Ellie to me. So I just wish they gave Marlene a little bit more sympathy of, you know, she's losing Ellie too, just like Joel is.
Right.
So that's one gripe. But going into, so then you go into Ellie kind of being distant, definitely traumatized. And just hinting back to episode 8, the very end with Ellie, just Bella's so good. um, because I remember watching the her killing David, and in the game, David, you get the sense that he's like he's a pedo. He like is very creepy,
Right.
but it's not outrightly obvious that he's going to assault Ellie. And in this, they made it so obvious. You know, he like reaches for his belt. It was very, very obvious. And I swear, 1 second I was laughing, not like haha, but like just like, oh wow, they really made it obvious now. So I was laughing, and then she started screaming and crying, and I was crying the very next second. So just she does so well. So then seeing her trauma in the next episode, just being distant, and poor Joel, like finally like embracing that fatherly dad side, getting the boggle, saying like, "Oh my God, have you ever played this?"
Oh gosh, yeah.
And then just like the non-reciprocation because she's going through so much. And then you get that beautiful scene with the giraffes, and this scene is, it's hard for me to explain my feelings on this scene because it's this beautiful break in all of this trauma, all of this drama and trauma. And you get to see Ellie being a kid, being excited about a giraffe, and Joel being able to see that childlike like wonder on her face. And it's just the music and the, it's almost magical. And that scene itself encompasses why I love The Last of Us overall. And I was like sobbing during this. Oh my God, am I gonna cry? I was like crying during the scene because it just like everything about it was so perfect. And it was a 1-for-1 adaptation. They have that little talk about what, like you said, about, you know, we can do this or we cannot. And Ellie says, you know, there's no halfway with this. It was just such a nice break and a breather. And then everything goes bad.
Yeah.
we get that little scene of Joel talking about how he dealt with Sarah's death, and apparently it wasn't very good. And it was so well written that I was questioning if that was something that existed in the game before or not, because it seemed so real. Joel's trying to commit suicide, which echoes back to Sam and Henry. And I think that's why he started getting those panic attacks, because like he was right there. And if he was any closer or more certain, then he would have been Henry. So that was sad. To see him admit something like that. But it brought them that much closer, and you finally get that like real, like, we are together on this. Like we're each other's ride or die at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was it was just
then they get caught.
There was just, and it was good because it was
caught,
because it's like, just thinking about it, because like with Joel, from a Joel perspective, like you have to think, you asking her not to do this, like in the beginning, like, just again, we don't have to do this. We can just go back to Jackson. We could just live our lives in Jackson with Tommy and them. Like,
right.
It comes off as selfish, but it's a very much understanding on why he will want to do that. You know, but even before, you know, he finds out the truth about what happened to Ellie. But it's just, and it's one of those things. It's kind of like, you have something that literally could save the whole world, but you want to keep it to yourself. But in this situation, keeping it to yourself probably was the right way to go. I mean, that still has to be seen, because again, because who knows? Because who knows how many tests that they tried to do? Like, it felt like when Marlene was talking about, they have to like go in Ellie's brain to pull out what they needed. And I'm just like, couldn't you just
Mhm.
do it from a blood test, like blood or anything like that? Why does it have to be specifically from the brain? So I wonder if there was like more options available, or if that was just kind of like
Mhm.
this doctor was like, no, this is the only way. So, but it's just like
Mhm.
I don't know, like one part it is a little selfish. I mean, I'll be honest about that. But in the other part, you basically have your heart again, and you don't want to give that up. And so it's just
Right.
I would hate to be in Joel's shoes when trying to make a
Right.
decision about that. That's really tough.
No, definitely. And that's, I think that, I mean, there is supposed to be a moral ambiguity at the end. You know, what is right? Who is right?
Right.
Is Joel, is what he did okay? And that's up to each individual person. But one thing I will touch on though is I've seen a lot of people talk about like, oh, were enough tests done? Why is this the only option? And there is a TikTok that went pretty viral about it actually that
Mm-hmm.
I keep seeing, and people
Oh.
I've talked about it a bit, but I it's one of those things is like, do we need to have all the answers?
Yeah.
I would it be nice having all the answers? Sure, but do they need to spell everything out for us? I don't know, but just to play devil's advocate, the likelihood that the doctor
Mm-hmm.
is a neurologist, that he knows the fungus,
Mm-hmm.
that he even is a what or was a doctor beforehand is probably pretty low.
Right.
This guy might be a general practitioner. He might be a pediatrician for all we know. He might be a chiropractor, but
Yeah.
he's the only one with medical knowledge. So regarding the test, I don't know. In the game, you can find out that they did run blood tests.
Mm.
There's tests done.
Okay.
We don't know when they were done. We don't know what exactly was done, but that there were tests done, and the only thing is that it's in her brain because we know that's where the fungus is, and that's where the not a variant, but like where the change is in her.
Right.
And then I've seen people say like, oh, well, then do a biopsy. We're 20 years in the apocalypse. Do we really think a biopsy is possible? And again, if this doctor doesn't know what he's doing, that probably would have been her death anyway.
I think would have been.
So
I think would have been cool if they would have brought back the doctor from beginning of episode 2, the one that spent her life studying this fungus. I think that would have been interesting. Have her in that spot instead of that random doctor. Obviously, it would have been different from the game, but I think that would have been like, full circle for that particular character. She studied her whole life with this fungus, and now she has somebody right here who has a cure to that fungus, and then Joel just comes in and just starts blasting everybody. But so it's, oh man, that was
So then, so then you get, obviously Joel makes his choice.
Yeah.
And definitely, I feel like in that situation, I would do the same thing. There's someone that you care about that means everything to you at this point. And they might be taken away from you. So going by, like, is that the right choice? It was right for him.
Yeah.
And it's funny bringing up choice because in episode 6, in Jackson, right before they leave, Joel gives Ellie a choice. Do you want to come with me or do you want to go with Tommy? Like she deserves to have a choice. Something like that is what he says, which is funny coming back to the end where he doesn't give her a choice.
Right.
And then he lies to her, and it's so funny because like you can tell that Ellie doesn't believe him.
Oh yeah.
Kimmy, you can tell that like she knows that something's up, and then he adds this extra in the car. He goes like, yeah, there's a ton like you. They couldn't do anything. And then we got attacked by raiders. Everyone's dead. It's like, okay, Joel, now you went a little too far.
That seems a little bit. That's overdoing it a little bit too much. Let's put a little bit too much mayonnaise on the sandwich right there. You had the perfect layer, then you had to be a little bit extra about it.
Right.
There was. Even I sat there and I was just like, "Come on, man! I don't believe this. Come on, at least make it Come on, what is this? And so
Right, you
make it
didn't have to go
believable.
that far. You
Yeah,
could have just
it's
left
just.
it.
And
But I
then,
think that was perfect because then it does like Ellie does get that chance to be like, okay, he's full of shit. And then so the ending, it does end abruptly like that in the game, and I think that's part of
okay.
like why it leaves you feeling like empty because it's like, what the, that's it? Okay, but
Yeah.
it says so much because it you can interpret that in a like, is it like, okay, I believe you and this is it, or is it like, okay, you're lying to me and we know it,
Right.
but there's nothing I can do about it now. um and it just it leads into season 2, and there's a lot to discover, and I love the episode. I wish it was longer. There are a few
Yeah.
things I wish that were a little different. But
Wow. That's just.
it was a wild ride.
It was. It was start to finish. So it's like, oh my gosh, this was such a good. So now you've got to go and start. You got to start streaming The Last of Us on your Twitch channel. So you definitely need to get started on that pretty soon.
Oh my gosh.
So there's that.
Listen, I played that game so many times. I will willingly play it again and again and again. I do need to play part 2 again.
Oh, well, there you go.
So yeah.
I mean, we got a while before they get
highly
the.
implore everybody to.
Yeah, that would be very much enjoyable. But yeah, so good season. Good season 1. It was very, very good. This is going on almost 2 hours. I didn't realize.
Oh my god!
So this, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not a big deal. This is. I figured it was gonna be long anyway. So, which is why I wanted to do it this way and not the Zoom way. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was such a good episode, really good series. They did, a good job. There weren't really any bad episodes. I mean, there were probably bad parts in some of the episodes, but overall, the episodes themselves were pretty good. I think IGN. I don't usually go by them, but because I'm still mad at them about the Mandalorian thing from the previous week. But I think all of the episodes, all the 9 episodes for season 1, IGN gave them all 9s, except for episode 3. They gave it a 10, but the rest were all 9s. And so they enjoyed it, and a lot of fans enjoyed it. I mean, you got more people who didn't know about The Last of Us on board. So
yeah, I was looking at the numbers for how many people were watching each episode. It's kind of impressive. They're doing like on par with House of the Dragon, which already has a big fandom behind it because of Game of Thrones. So I'm really impressed by it. It was really interesting hearing your take on things as someone who didn't play the game, and I kind of like. I wonder. I want to pick your brain more. I want to find out what you think is going to happen.
Oh man, it's why I know a lot of people have. I do know because a lot of people, it's the internet. People just they love to talk. I do know. I believe Joel dies, but
saying it.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well because I mean, most people are gonna probably already know that. Well, because I think the issue was when during the season 1 run, people were making it sound like that Joel was gonna die in season 1 of the show, and so that's why I think I was somewhat expecting that to potentially happen, because people were like just talking about it, but obviously. I was just like, I don't really care if he dies or not. I'm gonna watch that man from freaking Pedro, man. I want to watch that guy anything he does. Anyway, so it doesn't matter. He's gonna die and go pick up baby Grogu in his next thing. So
true.
So he's got his stuff taken care of. But I am interested in to see what again. I don't know nothing about the game. Part 2 of the game, so I don't know nothing about that, and so I am interested to see where things go, for sure. because again, that just that ending part where Joel is just like Ellie's just like, if you tell me what really happened at the hospital, I'll go with you. But she kind of doesn't. But she doesn't like do the thing where I think where like she talks about leaving. She kind of just says, "Did the stuff at the hospital really happen?" And he's just like, "Yes." And she was just like, there was like a pause. There was like a pause. I was just like, "What? What's this? What is this? What is this?" And then she's like, "All right." And then it just cuts. It's like, okay, it's interesting. Interesting.
There's a lot of weight in that. Okay.
Yeah. I was just like, I don't like the way she said that at all. I mean, obviously, and again, she probably knows you're lying. And I was just like, and in my mind, I was just like, Joel, y'all have been through so much. Why did you just not tell her the truth? Maybe I guess if he would have told her the truth, she may have willingly went along with it. She may have done it, even though she knew it would end her life. She was probably thinking of all the good that she can do with her life. So that may be why. I mean, but again, both Joel and Marlene did not give her a choice. So both are dicks in that respect, and in that aspect. And so, because I mean, Marlene especially,
No, and that's something I think that they want you to have is knowing that like no one is good, no one is the good guy, and that'll follow you into the entire story. Is that no one is good here? We're all just trying to survive. So no, they definitely did not give her a choice, and I agree with you. I think Ellie, after being told you can save humanity, I probably would do it.
Yeah, it's just that's just. I mean, but that's a lot. That is a lot of weight to put on yourself. For sure. And it's just because the reason I think she would have done it is because she probably would have thought about Sam and Riley, particularly those two, knowing that there could be other Sams and Rileys out there that I could save with this cure.
Yeah.
And so probably Tess too. You could probably throw Tess in there, but primarily Sam and Riley. But man, it's such good. I'm sure you're gonna go back and rewatch all of it.
Oh, I will. Absolutely.
And so, but all right, guys, that is it. This is our season 1 review of The Last of Us. Very long review, but I'm okay with that. This was a very fun conversation. Again, Jamie loves The Last of Us, and so she was very excited. I was prepared for this too, so I knew she would be ready to like deep dive into this world of infected and craziness.
Any chance I get.
Yes. So, but guys, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to give a like to the channel. You can follow us both on Instagram. I'll just add that. You'll add that at the end of the video. You'll probably should see it now in the video. But you can follow us both on Instagram. Jamie does cosplays. And so
I do.
She does. We did a podcast episode a couple of weeks ago, so be sure to check that out also. But other than that, thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll just catch you guys later. Let's see ya.